Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Hello, and welcome back to the W.A.I.T channel. What am I thinking? I guess since we last spoke, a lot has changed. We're in a new season. It's spring, even though it doesn't quite feel like it, I think, for some of us in some parts of the country, but it is spring. Spring has sprung. And not only did spring sprung, but some other things popped off, or however you want to say it. We even debated whether or not we were going to talk about this because it has been almost talked about until you can't talk about it anymore from every angle. But we feel like we can't move forward in the month of April without giving our spin or our take on how we feel about the Will Smith, Chris Rock, incident that happened the night of the Oscars.
Yeah. So for me, when you say, what am I thinking? I am thinking I'm over it. However, to not weigh in on it, we would be remiss. So I did not see it happen during the show because I was flipping around. I didn't watch everything, but I did tune in towards the end to see Will come to the stage, and I was totally confused about when his speech, because he was talking about what he's being called to do, and then he was apologizing, and I'm like, so your speech was a little disjointed to me, but I don't think they're not going to invite you back to the Oscars because of your crazy speech. And it wasn't until the next morning when I was informed about the incidents and I connected all the dots, and I was immediately shocked, sad, and all of the above. So I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know about the slap, but the background is that, and I'll give the full background, that there is some kind of bad blood already there between the Smiths and Chris Rock based on, I want to say, 2016 Oscars, where Will did not get nominated for a concussion, and Jada felt some kind of way and wanted people to kind of boycott. And not sure if Chris hosted that year or if he was just a presenter that year. But in any case, he made a joke about her boycotting, and
And I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. I also think that was the year there were a number of people of color
who were not. Yes, it was.
And he did host.
Okay.
And there was controversy over who would.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that was the year he did actually host.
And so, regardless of what side of that issue you fall on, it definitely caused a rift. Not sure what their relationship was like prior to that, but definitely we know they weren't in a good space. So let's fast forward to 2020. And as Chris, to me, as he's preparing to do whatever he's going to do, to say that they should have even been a target when you know there's already bad blood may have been a little in poor taste. Forget not even knowing the history of her diagnosis of alopecia. But I also look at it from the perspective of, you did a whole documentary on good hair and how Black women and women of color take their hair so seriously that they literally kind of go in debt for it sometimes. And it's a very personal space to be in. And you have two daughters, which is what kind of urged you to make that documentary. So, women and their hair, especially women of color and their hair, is a sensitive topic anyway. So probably a low blow, poor taste joke to make, but he makes it. In my dream world, I see Will either staying in his seat and making a comment, or hopefully with no 4-letter words in it, or going to the stage doing a pretend slap and maybe saying anything else about my wife, it's going to be a real slap. Ha ha ha. That's my dream world. I could sleep at night and nobody is in the tizzy that we're in now. That's not how he handles. He initially laughs at the joke. However, he makes eye contact with his wife, who he sees is beyond less than pleased, and he feels as if he needs to defend her. Bad move. And their relationship history, rocky to say the least, publicly and probably even more so privately. So it is probably, if as a clinician, I would say the things that were happening in his headspace, probably all very unhealthy. And he acted on them. He's got to live with that moment for the rest of his life. One of his biggest acting moments has been tainted and tarnished by poor choices. One of the journalists on CNN said it best: use your words. You could have used your words in that moment and it would have spoke volumes, and it would have said more about you in a positive light and less about Chris. But that's not the way it panned out. So we have to live with it. And to say that there should not be some type of consequences, yeah, there have to be consequences for that, because that's assault. That's assault. And Chris did handle it in the best way he could. And I guarantee you, he's having some sleepless nights thinking, could he have responded differently, and wishing he had, it could have turned ugly for both. So the fact that he was the bigger person in the moment, he gets credit for that for sure. So no winners in this situation. The Oscars, now we're understanding that they did ask Will to leave. He chose not to, and they chose not to escalate it and force him out. So no winners. They've got to respond, but they've got to respond even-handedly, because they don't want to do a beyond overreach, because the thing that gets lost is that they're, it's hard for an African American to even get acknowledged with the nomination, let alone win. So you've got to find a way to balance that out. So they're going to do something, probably suspend his voting rights, maybe probably won't be invited for a while. He will survive that. He will live. Chris, I understand his stand-up comedy show is selling out at a rate higher than it was. And so, money will not ease some of the wounds that he has to heal emotionally for him. And nobody knew how to respond appropriately, because they're in a bubble of Hollywood. So the fact that nobody came and was able to check on Chris to see if he was okay. The fact that Will didn't apologize to Chris in the moment of his speech, which I wish he had. The fact that people were coming up and checking to see if Will and Jada were okay after the event. All that's that Hollywood bubble. The fact that he gets a standing ovation from the audience after having behaved in such an egregious manner. All of that is wrong. But we have to look at the bubble we've created for them to live in, that made him feel like he would not end up in the pretty bracelets after doing something like that. Any other person would be arrested and dealing with the case.
And that is what creates that much bigger issue that not everyone is talking about, and that is our society, the way we look at violence, the way we look at those hard emotions and how we do deal with them. It's quite funny because I think it was Monday evening, I was watching an old Turner classic with Betty Davis. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, the husband and the wife, they're walking to let their guest in. It's the closing scene. and they have just made up, and he tells her, smile, because if you don't, they'll think I beat you. And she says, I'll smile. And he says to her basically, well, good, because I don't want to have to beat you. And then the music comes on, and then the closing credits. And for that to come on the heels of what happened on Sunday, it opened my eyes to, yes, there was clearly a time in our society where that type of violence, you didn't bat an eye at it, because it was something that we knew was there. We accepted it because we wrote lines and scripts and we put it in there as a joke. And now here we are, over like 80 years later, and the same industry that allowed the film to be made, that allowed Betty Davis' husband to say this line, with the same academy, we see it actually is not art imitating life, but it's life, and it's actually happening, and it's taking days and days and days for somebody to actually, it doesn't take that long to realize a crime was committed. You can feel sorry for Jada, you can empathize with Will, but it's not about that. Because if we all get to act on our emotions because we're upset about something, we'll be going around slapping people all day and every day.
Yeah, I think it was out the gate, because that was one of the first lines I read, was that Chris was choosing not to file charges. So it wasn't that they didn't realize a crime had been committed after the fact. It was in the moment, the way they responded to the behavior that...
So let's put a correction on what Chris has decided, because last night in his show, he said, I'm still processing.
Okay.
I have not made...
And the LAPD said that if he changes his mind, they are ready.
Yeah.
So, do I think that's the best way to go? I don't, but that's for him. He gets the right to decide how to do that. Because he was the victim in the situation. Let's get that clear. He was the victim, not Jada, not Will. Because words do hurt, but we have free speech. It's the Oscars. If you're in the audience,
and
you don't even have to be in the audience
to be. We have laws.
Yeah. So if he chooses to do that, that's his right to do that.
Absolutely.
And I would hope he wouldn't. I would hope that there could be a bigger moment that would come out of this for learning and to deal with mental health, to deal with relationships, to deal with people who have disabilities and disorders, and to learn how to manage your anger and your emotions, to learn how to respond and not react. Which that's a big thing for me. So it's sad, as I said, no winners. And even though Chris handled it in a way that made it not worse, he still got to live with some things. And I don't know how much money could make it better for him. I don't think there's an amount, because I'm telling you, think about when you have done something that you in a situation and you relive it and you're like, I should have, or I could have, or why didn't I? Because you've got the comedy world of people saying, well, if it had been so-and-so, if they had done it, or if it had been, he handled it in the best manner that somebody could have. He did not act like it didn't happen, but he didn't retaliate in the moment. So I kind of wish when he saw Will coming that he had exit stage laugh. But I know in his mind, of all the things that could have happened,
he never imagined.
He never thought it would have been physical, because he said, here come Richard, So he knew something was going to happen, but I don't think he thought it would be that. So let's get in a situation where we can learn from this all the way around. Let the Academy learn. Let Will and Jada definitely. And, I could talk more about the relationship and why he probably felt like he needed to step up in that way, but no need to dissect their relationship. They have done it enough themselves.
Yes.
ad nauseum. So, but yeah, so the slap happened, the inappropriate responses to the slap happened, and the consequences are yet to be determined. So that is what I am thinking about the slap during the Oscars.
So if you have any comments, be they pro or con, feel free to continue the discussion, and we look forward to talking to you next time on the W.A.I.T channel, What Am I Thinking?